Domestic violence, a decline in mental health, crippling social isolation, rising crime rates, and a mental health status that is greater and more severe than that of their parents is the real life situation facing the African youth, especially in the city of Dandenong. My question is, just how bad does this problem have to be for us to be able to act and protect this vulnerable population? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Isata Victoria Mandoh, a student of the Advanced Nursing Program at Monash University, and I am here presenting on a project titled Improving Psychosocial Support for African Australian Youth in Dandenong, for short IPSE. Let me first of all give you an outline of today's presentation. The presentation outline includes background, aims and objectives of the project rationale, planning, implementation, evaluation, and ethical considerations, as well as conclusion, recommendation, and references. Now, I need to provide an insight into the background of how this idea for the implementation of this project came about. IPSE was founded in response to the domestic violence-related mental health needs and health disparities discovered from an evidence-based needs analysis that identified gaps in care and support from past and existing mental health support services. This assessment showed a staggering global domestic violence statistic affecting nearly 2 billion children aged 2 to 17, approximately 54%, which keeps increasing, and at the moment it's at 76% with corresponding mental health issues. I must remind you though, ladies and gentlemen, that this global issue is echoed in Australia, with approximately 4 million Australians having mental health problems and 8 fatalities daily. These statistics involves mainly more the youth. However, this issue also affects African youth and is made complex by cultural complexities, health, education, socioeconomic, and psychological disparities, and suboptimal access to mental health support. The African youth, being part of just 1% of the population in Victoria, manifest increasing statistics in crimes of approximately 4.8%, aggravated burglary of 2.1%, with associated social problems. Take note, ladies and gentlemen, however, that while other ethnic Australian populations have experienced rapid recovery from these social problems, the African youth lack appropriate strategies to explore the factors that underpin these social problems, one of which is domestic violence-related mental health problems. It is not so obvious because mental health is not part of the African vocabulary, and domestic violence is not part of the African vocabulary. Instead, Africans expect people experiencing mental issues to recover, to get over it and be strong. And they don't see domestic violence as violence, rather it is seen as discipline. Now, we need to move on, but first of all, I would want to take your attention to the Sustainable Development Goals, the targets of which are 3.4 and 16.2, focusing on promoting mental health and well-being, as well as domestic violence strategies amongst youth. Now, let's look at the social determinants. The social determinants of health, according to Lund et al. 2018, have a close relationship with mental health. And there are factors, and these factors can be distal factors and also proximal factors. Thus, despite the call for improved social determinants and health equality and equity related to domestic violence and mental health by the Sustainable Development Goals targets 3.4 and 16.2, these social issues do not only put the African youth among the top in the list of vulnerable populations in Australia, but requires a deeper analysis of the underpinning problems, identifying programs, networks, and appropriate interventions that are informal to bridge the social barriers affecting the African youth. This is where you come in, because it is only with your support that this can be actualized. Lund et al. Further add that the social determinants of health, such as unequal access to healthcare, suboptimal literacy and socioeconomic status, racial disparities, and cultural complexities contribute to health inequalities. We need your support so that we can go over these barriers, so that there will be equal access to mental health support and domestic violence support for this African youth, so that crime rates and the multiplier effect that we've been seeing will be controlled. This is where the goals of this program come in. The project has an overarching goal focused on decreasing the rate of domestic violence among African youth through recreational activities and physical and mental health literacy. And the objectives are short-term, intermediate, all focused on increasing awareness, mental health awareness, reduce domestic violence related mental health among the African youth by 20%. You would want to know why we have these ambitious objectives, which are achievable. But let me give you the rationale. There is the vision, and IPSE is a not-for-profit social inclusion and integration program aimed at providing cultural and age-specific support to African Australian youth through football and health literacy, so that no African youth aged 15 to 17 is harmed by preventable domestic violence-related mental health. Why? Well, the answer is the project rationale. It has been shown that physical activity is a very big source to the improvement of mental health. A study by Street and James 2017 proved this, and it is shown that 1 to 3 times a week physical activity improves mental health by 34%, and more than 4 times a week physical activity improves mental health by 47%, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, the study further went on to show that 80% of the respondents believe on the positive effect of physical activity. But because this is a multiple intervention program, we will look at what health literacy does. Health literacy has been found to have a close relationship with social determinants, because it is believed that social determinants of health plus health literacy leads to high health status predictor, because it empowers people to be able to make healthy decisions towards their health, improvement of their health, and then taking their health into their own hands and reaching out for support. This is the reason why health literacy will be a very important aspect of this program. We move on to the project plan, ladies and gentlemen, because it is said that when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. This is the reason why planning will be based on stakeholder engagement and communication. And as you can see, you all here now listening to me, your participation is really important because of the influence and the interest you will have on this project. and then you will be required to not only to support this program, but also to participate in supervision of the program, monitoring of the program, so that there will be sustainability. This requires a channel of communication, which was shown on the table, and also based on particular stages in the development of this project. There's another aspect to the planning process. This planning process also shows the project timeline, which is also very important, because when there is a timeline, activities will be achieved within time, and then outcomes will be realized. That's the reason why you see the timeline. One of the processes has been completed, which is the needs assessment. Planning is ongoing at the moment. Of course, we are doing stakeholder consultation with you now so that you can support this project, so that it can be implemented. Ladies and gentlemen, because this program is aimed towards sustainability, that's why you see that's the date until 2020, a time which the community would have taken control or taken over this project. Furthermore, planning will look at the project enablers and barriers through a SWOT analysis to identify them. And then this is just a SWOT analysis that was done to have an overview of what's the possibility of the success of this program will be. And as you can see, the strength and the opportunities outweigh the weaknesses and the threats. But again, there will be a need to engage the community to do further analysis, so that barriers or whatever anticipated barriers will be planned for, because contingency management is a very important aspect of project management. Therefore, planning for contingency would be done using the change management model, using the driving forces, which also outweigh the restraining forces, as you can see on the screen, so that the program will be successful and will be sustainable at the end of the day, which is what we are really aiming for with your support. This would lead to implementation of the project. The program implementation, as I mentioned earlier, will be done using the Kellogg model. This model is a very important model, which is appropriate incorporating the socio-ecological model and the empowerment model as opposed to the medical model, because mental health is a social issue. Using this model alongside sporting activities for the promotion of social integration and empowerment for health decision making will be very important. In addition, the youth will be able to take their future into their own hands. There will be healthy families and communities will benefit. The multiplier effect will be great. With your support, this will be achieved. As you can see, resources are needed, and with your support, we are hoping for a minimum of $5,000 grants to be able to get the resources for the realization of the output of this program. And then, of course, impact will lead to self-awareness, culture-specific domestic violence, mental health strategies, policies, and support. And then, of course, there will be outcomes will be short-term, intermediate, and long-term. The management strategies, ladies and gentlemen, include the listed activities, as most of them have been mentioned already. But I must add that at IPSE, we believe that a solution for the African youth is through restoration with their families and communities in a progressive, adaptive, and Australian accommodative lifestyle. Staff will be trained to understand the culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds of African refugee families and the challenges born from their displacement, and we will connect culturally experienced community mentors and peer mentors, counselors, and social workers with parents and children of these communities to develop culturally appropriate strategies that enhance their relationship, gain confidence, which is very important, so that families will be happy. Families will be happy, and society will be safe for not only the African youth and their families, but for everyone. This will be done through multi-level activities, downstream level, focusing on the African youth population, and of course middle stream, focusing on community and health partner involvement, and of course upstream level, which focuses on policies and legislation towards controlling domestic violence and mental health issues, so that there will be equity and equality at the end of the day. But we cannot do all of these things if we don't evaluate, because evaluation at the end of the day would show us whether the resources used were used appropriately and the benefits were realized. Therefore, the evaluation will involve monitoring, and of course there will be process impact and outcomes evaluation. This process evaluation will be conducted to evaluate the strategies used to plan and implement a program, measured using attendance registers when the program would have started, number of peer mentors who are willing to take part in leadership roles, the role of health partners, if any, and whether there's an increased attendance. The impact evaluation would be dependent on positive changes or the understanding of the causes of negative outcomes, and if the objectives were met. We want to see if there's increased awareness, etc. Outcomes evaluation also will consider the broader issues such as changes to local government policy, community empowerment, a decrease in mental health and domestic violence issues among the African youth population. And we would want to consider ethical consideration, because this project is not just about providing benefits for the African youth. It is about making sure that whilst we want to provide benefits, we shouldn't cause harm. So in this case, we would look at even though this program is founded on evidence-based needs analysis, complexities can develop related to ethical consideration. Thus, the appropriateness and quality of the intervention should be based not only on the benefits, as I said, but also based on the program's specific ethical consideration throughout the lifetime of the program. Such concerns could be related to how to deal with instances of violence, disclosures, privacy, mandatory reporting of such issues during program implementation and evaluation. And moreover, we will make sure that we take care not to harm participants during data collection for evaluation, especially if cultural sensitive information is divulged during our work. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I'll have to summarize. And in summary, I want to add that the development and sustainability of a health promotion program depends on planning based on the principles of health promotion, the findings of a needs assessment and appropriate models, which has been done, and as explained, you can see. This presentation, therefore, has focused on using the Kellogg model, which was briefly mentioned, for the implementation evaluation of health literacy and football intervention to address the issue of domestic violence related mental health among African youth in Daniel. Finally, if we watch the news, we have seen the Prime Minister talking about mental health among youth. This project is based on the increased call for mental health support for youth by not only the Sustainable Development Goals, but by the Australian government. It is therefore recommended that this program proposed be supported to facilitate a successful implementation. These are the references in case you want to, and I want to thank you. But before I leave, let us not forget that we need to support this program, because a healthy youth provides a healthy society which is needed for the Australian society. Thank you.